Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I guess you can call this the state of the channel New Year's vlog. First of all, Happy New Year, but I think I've already done a review there where I said Happy New Year and all that, and I figured I just want to talk to you guys and give you a little heads up. First of all, for the one or two of you who are waiting, the original plan of this vlog, I had an idea to do something with Salty Santa, and I kind of had the idea, but getting it worked out, and to be very honest, just getting the time to do it, and the things of that nature, it was just a little more than I wanted to do. Unfortunately, the Salty Santa character has really played its course. It worked for a few years, and then I think the majority of people lost interest, so there's really just no point in me doing it. So I'm sorry. I apologize. I know some of you do look forward to it, and hopefully maybe next year, or who knows, maybe during the year, he might make an appearance, but I don't know. But before I go any further, I just want to say to everyone, thank you. Thank you for watching, but especially thank you for the well wishes from basically April until July. As many of you might remember, my dad got very, very ill. He almost died. He's made a full recovery. We were able to spend the end of the summer and both holidays, through all the holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's with him. He's completely, I would say completely back to normal, but some people would also say, knowing him, what exactly is normal. But yeah, I know it kind of shook things up a little in terms of getting reviews done, because I was spending pretty much every moment at the hospital. There were a few reviews I was able to get out and get up that I really felt I had to, that I got product early right away and was able to get it up. And and that brings me to my next point in terms of the state of the channel. 2018 was basically an average to below average year. If you consider the fact that, yes, it was a movie year with the Bumblebee movie coming out, then I would have to say it was not a good year. But I think that has to do more with something I've mentioned in the past, that I feel the Transformers brand on the whole is on a slow but steady decline. From Age of Extinction to last night to Bumblebee, I think the interest in the brand that the movies created, which was over 10 years, has basically petered out. While Bumblebee is done well in terms of reviews and word of mouth, it did not do well domestically. I should say it did not do as well as it was expected, which means in terms of those people's eyes, it did not do well. I am aware that it's open in China and it's doing well overseas, as has the, last night and before it did well overseas. But, when it's an American-produced movie, how it does in America matters. And I think part of the problem was that Bumblebee was released in a 12-day period where you had many quote-unquote blockbuster films released. And, Bumblebee had to compete with Aquaman and Mary Poppins, as well as a few others that did better than what was expected. Bohemian Rhapsody, for example, if you didn't know, it just won the Golden Globe for Best Film of the Year. As an aside, as a Queen fan, I am over the moon that, let's see, I'm doing math, 20, like 27, 28 years after Freddie Mercury's death, Queen are getting this is the most recognition and brand awareness they've had. As a noted rock journalist, Eddie Trunk, has said, this is the biggest they've been since 1980, when they had a multi-platinum Billboard number one album with The Game. But anyway, back to Bumblebee. That was, really, I think, did it do it any favors. I think it really should have opened in a rather quiet weekend with not a lot of other films. Another problem I think it had is that the Wave 1 toys were released 2 to 3 months before the film. And it was basically no interest. Usually with any movie toy, if I'm able to get the first review, which, to be honest, I kind of missed out, and we'll get to that in a moment, those are usually guaranteed 10,000 plus view videos. And the only part of the toys that I was able to get that first review were the Power Series figures, and I think they barely broke 1,000 views. So there was no interest in the toys. And when Bumblebee finally opened, a lot of those Wave 1 figures of the characters from the film were on clearance. And with that being said, there's Wave 2 kind of hit saturation when the movie hit. That was the Power Series. You had a Shatter, Optimus Prime, and Megatron. Blitzwing, who was a repaint of Megatron. And then the Shatter was a jet. And then in the Power Plus, you had a Shatter as a car, which was a retool of Dropkick. Well, it actually was a repaint of Dropkick with a new head and some other greebly bits. I think, one of the things is we need to, stop using the phrase repaint, retool, or just retool, when realistically, if it's just a new head or one or two new parts, it's still a repaint. You're still using the majority of the mold. And I think that's Hasbro trying to pass something off as new that isn't new. But enough of that. And, Tron Legacy, if you remember that film, the figures by Spin Master, which were kind of cool. Unfortunately, the gimmicks didn't exactly work all the time. Those were released months and months in advance of the film, to the point where by the time the movie hit, they had been clearanced out of stock or were on clearance at most stores. My point being is, I do not see Bumblebee having the lasting appeal and interest in this country that the figures we've just seen released, meaning the Wave 2 Nitro figures and some of the newer Power and Power Plus figures, are going to see release. And let me just be clear. The figures showing up sometime in the summer at Ollie's or Five Below or Marshall's or some discount chain is not them seeing release. They need to be seen in a brick and mortar store. And I think also part of the problem is, as Hasbro and other toy retailers mentioned during the holidays, no Toys R Us is really affecting them. I know some people have said they've seen their stores expand the toy section. The only retailer I have in my area that sold toys was Target, and they didn't expand anything. And I happened to go there a week after Christmas, and it was a barren wasteland, picked over. And I'm confident to say that that particular location probably looked like that before Christmas. Going on, I hate to say this, but I think Power of the Primes was a failure of a line. It was basically a clearinghouse for figures and ideas they had over the previous 2 to 3 years with Combiner Wars and Titans Return. And I think the three problems that the line had were: one, it was a clearinghouse. You had the Combiner concept come back. You had the Titan Master concept return as Prime Masters. And then they were trying to do the new gimmick with the leader figures called Evolution. And I think, that was actually number two, is that you basically had this line going with two different gimmicks. You had the Prime Master gimmick, and then you had the Evolution gimmick, where I think there really should have been, like with Combiner Wars and Titans Return, one gimmick across all the size classes. I think that Evolution gimmick could have been worked out from Leader, Voyager, Deluxe, and Scout. And I think that was a problem. Because, with the Deluxes, you basically had a lot of figures that were, for lack of a better term, neutered to be with a combiner port. I mean, don't get me wrong, you had some great figures. You had the Dinobots, which was finally really nice to get new G1 Dinobot molds. But then at the same time, we had reissues of the Aerialbot mold, which the only thing worse would have been the Dead End or Breakdown Stunticon mold. I think Dead End was the one that got used the most. That mold should just be burned and never used again, because by this point the figure would just come out of the pack and you'd be like, forget about it standing. But yeah, I mean, they tried to do something with Darkwind and Dreadwing, or Dreadwind and Dark. I've always confused those two, but they tried to do something there that really required a new mold. Now, again, I don't want to say that there weren't some lights in the black. Like I said, you had the Dinobots. That was really cool. You had the Terracons, but, again, they were kind of ruined because with this new Prime Master gimmick, they didn't have the hands and feet that kind of matched the other Combiner robots from Combiner Wars. They don't even match Computron, who was their main adversary. So stylistically, they just don't fit in. Rodimus Prime was okay. Optimus Prime was fantastic. As I mentioned in the review, which unfortunately you haven't seen yet, I haven't put it up. I still have that review coming. I do the leaders together. I saw it in box, and I thought, wow, they're repackaging Masterpiece version 2 Optimus Prime, and then it dawned on me that's the new Evolution Optimus Prime. Now, if I'm also going to be honest, I think that was like the perfect opportunity to give us a proper Power Master Optimus Prime, but I digress. You also had Battle Trap, with two Legend figures. But again, we have this two Legend figures that combine together. Meanwhile, we got Skytread and Flywheels in Siege, and it was just the two vehicles that combined together. So stylistically, they're not going to go together well. That's a shame. But yeah, I really think Power of the Primes was not overall a good line. I think a lot of corners were cut that shouldn't have been cut. Now, on a positive side, I think the Prime Wars trilogy figures, the Shuttle Blast Off, the full Headmaster Grotesque. I hope I have that name right. I don't think I do. The Bug Guy, and then Punch Counter Punch were fantastic. Punch Counter Punch, if it actually came properly assembled, would have been Figure of the Year for me. It was just a really great looking figures. The presentation was nice, the box, the shape, and all that. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Siege came right at the end, and that's really like the 2019 line. And let me just say, 2019 is starting off really well with Transformers. I think Siege is doing fantastic. I think Siege is fantastic. I hope it does fantastic, but that we'll have to see in terms of how stores stock the figures and the general interest. Yes, there's been a price increase, and unlike in previous lines, I can really see where that price increase went into the figure. with the exception of the leader class figures. By now, I'm sure everyone has seen reviews of Ultra Magnus and Shockwave, and I have to say I'm very disappointed. Ultra Magnus is okay. I appreciate what they were going for, trying to homage the G1 toy as well as the 2000 Robots in Disguise Ultra Magnets. But Shockwave is just a complete and total fail. It's a Voyager. They are both Voyager-sized figures with add-on parts that only make them slightly bigger, but are still much smaller than leader class figures we've gotten before, and that's disappointing. Shockwave, we had. Even the base robot mode is too small to be a proper space cannon. You can't hold it, so you gotta basically use it as a ship. But the robot mode looks nice, but it's just entirely too small. And I think even in Shockwave's case, it's smaller than Voyager, Optimus Prime, and Megatron. But hopefully I will be able to get those sooner than later. Probably later, since again, I've missed out on the first chance of reviews, so those go from spend money on to try and get with Amazon gift cards and on a discount or something. Which, by the way, if you've been wondering where certain figures are, I still do have a little bit of a backlog of reviews, but the other problem is Amazon, using these new price algorithms, have made it very difficult to get certain figures because, for example, as I mentioned in my Bumblebee Speed Series review, they put them out, and something like the Volkswagen Bumblebee was going for close to $20, and then the Camaro Bumblebee was about $15. And then Hot Rod and Barricade were around $15, and that's shipped and sold by Amazon, and that's entirely too much for what they are. But the reason they're doing that is because you have third-party sellers who are selling them for that same price. And that brings me to my next point: is I do see a shift in terms of the reviewer world, as is YouTube reviewer, the content creators on YouTube, and as it pertains to toys and Transformers specifically. And that's basically, you now have these guys who are overseas in China, the Philippines, Taiwan, who normally would get these figures early and then ship them to Western-based reviewers, now doing the reviews themselves. Just to give you an idea, the next wave of Studio Series figures, I think the leader class figures from Siege, and I don't think Cyberverse yet, but those two. Oh, and I think no, not the Bumblebee movie figures, but really the Studio Series and the Siege leaders. Well, the Siege leaders, they were reviewed, and that news cycle was considered done before there were any Western North American sightings on shelf. And they certainly haven't shown up at online retailers. The Studio Series figures, these are months, like at least a month, if not longer, away from seeing any type of brick and mortar release, and that news cycle is done. That's enough time for people to even forget they saw the video review. And I see that becoming a real problem for other creators like myself, because really those first reviews, those are the most crucial, because those are the ones that get the random people who don't care about content creators. They just want the information, and they go with anyone who's first. And then down the line, you have the subscribers who will watch anything from the content creator they prefer. Another problem I've been noticing, and that's directly on the boards, is people really, when it comes to discussions about the figures, the reviews tend to just sidestep them. Personally speaking, I've seen where I've had reviews go up, And these are like first look, figures that are months away, or just about months, or maybe just snuck out. Nobody knew about them. And the conversation in the comments after the video are about wild speculation about something that's completely impossible to happen. And it's very disheartening. So if you're active on a forum and you see that a video review goes up, try to steer the discussion towards the video review. Try to keep, the people interested. I mean, be polite about it, but don't, be a little forceful. Because, I mean, I have a lot of issues with forums, especially when it comes to, how they're run. And I think you have these mods who sometimes are a little power hungry and uppity. But, I mean, obviously, nobody that I know. And there are some sites, ones that I really don't frequent, that are really run horribly, in my opinion. But I mean, that's a diatribe for another time. But so yeah, and don't be afraid to speak out against Hasbro. Don't be afraid to speak out against prices. One thing I noticed in 2018 is that you had people who, I mean, it almost seems like they're in Hasbro's pockets, for lack of a better term, and I hate to say that, but I mean, any sort of criticism of Hasbro or their pricing, especially there was many of us who openly questioned the pricing of Predaking. I mean, I don't have Predaking. I don't see myself getting it anytime soon because I don't see it being a $100, $150 toy. It's not. The value is not there. But people were openly criticizing and, rushing to Hasbro's defense. And I think these are people who feel they need that we should just automatically fall prostrate in front of Hasbro, and anything they put out, we should just be humbly grateful and take an homage and stuff like that. And that's just not true. And don't be bullied into having to think like that. I mean, there's a lot that Hasbro does right. Apparently, this was a very good year for Marvel Legends. I would have loved to have been able to pick some up, but my finances have to go where the reviews are, and the reviews for me come from Transformers and related sort of videos. I've tried doing Marvel Legend reviews before, and they just did not get the views. I think a lot of that has to do with my style being very different than what a Marvel Legends collector wants to get. And when I say Marvel Legends, I mean the 6-inch comic book style articulated action figure, the DC multiverse and stuff. I mean, I have some of them. I actually got a couple. I got one DC multiverse figure, along with some Star Wars, the 4.5-inch Black Series figures, and I mean, it just doesn't pay to review them. So, that's a shame. And but moving on, let's get on to something a little more positive. Figure of the year, toy of the year. I just tapped the table and the camera just came down. That was kind of funny. If you guys remember, a few months back into the spring, I reviewed a figure and I said that this is probably going to be 2018 figure of the year. There was maybe something that could come across and take it over. Well, nope, there wasn't. Figure of the year is, of course, and let me just move the camera here, give you a little, definitely has to be Bike Robo, the DX Bike Robo by Action Toys. This should speak volumes. Now, I want to make it clear. This is an officially licensed product. Action Toys has the license, I think, from Sunrise Animation to do figures based on the Revenge of Kronos Japanese cartoon, which was the Machine Robo line. But this figure is excellent. This figure is the Masterpiece Psycho from GoBots. It is a fun but involved transformation not overly complicated, but your hands won't get bored. Um, and then the fact that they took the chance and threw the alternate faceplates in to give you Psykill uh, is, you know, about something above and beyond that other companies wouldn't have. And again, I want to stress they are officially licensed. And geez, Bike Robo looks like it's coming out backwards there, but um, yeah, I mean, but that is the figure of the year. Punch Counterpunch could have done it, but unfortunately, the figure had some assembly issues that had to be dealt with once you got it out of packaging. So yeah, looking forward to 2019. I'd like to see how Siege plays out. I am very much looking forward in August to which is already close to the end of the year, Masterpiece Optimus Prime. I do have a figure, by the way, which is an early contender for Figure of the Year 2019. And it is not a Transformer, but it does convert. You'll hopefully be seeing a review of that soon. One thing I almost forgot to mention, and one of the reasons why I didn't do the whole Salty Santa thing at the beginning of the video, I have to go. This is being recorded on a Wednesday, and then tomorrow for me would be Thursday. I have to go get a root canal. The week before Christmas, I started having some throbbing on the right side of my mouth, and obviously I knew I had to go to the dentist, but being the holiday period, I figured it would be impossible to be seen, and it did actually start affecting how I could bite. Like, I could not close my mouth all the way, but also affected how I would sneeze. Like, stuff was shifting. The throbbing actually would progress to a point of pain, but that subsided relatively quickly. And it only happened at a certain time during the night, which I thought was weird. But I finally got swelling in the front right gum line, and when I was able to finally get to my dentist, he looked at it and says, "Yeah, you have an infection and you need a root canal." So I am going to do that, and hopefully, from what I understand, because my dad has had one, he actually had one before he got sick, and I looked the procedure up online. It's not what it used to be. It's nothing overly scary or terrible. So I'm not that concerned or worried about it. But it is something that, you might not get, I might have to take a few days to not do reviews, to, let the mouth rest, because there is like multiple steps. I mean, I get the root canal, but then I have to go to my dentist to have the procedure finished. So, yep, that's about it. I hope, again, if you like my videos, you're not subscribed, subscribe, sign up for notifications, like them, share them around. Don't be afraid to speak your mind about the product. If you like something, say so. If you don't like it, say so. Stand by your reasons, and don't let anybody push you around. This is Chuck. Once again, Happy New Year, and I will see you next time.